Welcome in. Welcome back. The Outsider Sports Football Podcast. Ben Mandel, Corey Jason, and Dylan Mill. I'm Ryan Bally. We're here with you Tuesday, November 7th, exactly halfway through the NFL regular season. We're 9 weeks behind, 9 weeks ahead. We're going to have a great show, a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, we're going to take a look ahead to next week. Not the best slate of matchups compared to this past week, but hopefully some good games come from it. Outsiders of the week, as we always do every week, are mid-season awards, who we think would take these awards home if the season ended right now. And of course, we got to talk Colts. We're going to talk a little Giants as well this week regarding, the Giants have had some unfortunate injury situations all throughout the season, and a big one happened this past weekend. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we jump in, remember to follow us on Twitter or X at Outsider Sports 3. Get all those notifications for when our content goes live, whether it's the shows here, if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, or any of our content, all kinds of rankings for all different sports leagues over on our website. So let's get into it. Colt Report Weekly, Corey's favorite 60 seconds of the week. Colts are back in the win column. We knocked off the lowly Carolina Panthers, and it was all thanks to one man, Kenny Moore, with 2 pick sixes. I'm anticipating a Defensive Player of the Week award coming his way. And then it's on to Germany. And Corey, looks like you got something to share.
I want to add into Colt Reports Weekly and get a scouting report on Giant franchise quarterback Jacob Eason. No, he was repping the Colts at one point. Please tell me he's not terrible.
I think I may have seen more of Jacob Eason than Ryan has.
Yeah, I saw him come in for Carson Wentz and throw an interception to Jalen Ramsey to nullify any comeback attempt in one. That was my exposure to Eason.
What I was worried about.
Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up there. Sorry.
It will be. So I was telling Corey earlier, I know Jacob Eason from when he played at Georgia. And this is a guy, Corey's like, wait a minute, I thought he came from Washington. Yes. Because he was the quarterback at Georgia before being replaced by someone, and then he went and transferred to Washington. He got hurt early in that 17-18 season where Georgia went to the national championship and fell to Alabama and Tua Tagovailoa. Jake Fromm replaced Jacob Eason. That's exactly what it's going to look like when Jake Fromm played for the Giants. That's what it's going to look like if Jacob Eason has to step in under center, I believe.
Kill me.
Before we dive into the Giants quarterback woes, here's an ESPN type cherry pick stat regarding the Colts. They are the only team the week prior to playing a Europe game this season on the road to win. Atlanta, before going to England, lost on the road, as did Baltimore and Tennessee. Some of the teams that won, like Buffalo, they played at home the week prior, traveling to Europe. So I just heard that during the Colts broadcast and thought, that's exactly the type of stat
the Colts are good. That's what I'm hearing. The Colts are good.
I can neither conform nor deny that. Minshew Mania is starting to wear off.
Of all the teams here, of our teams, the Colts aren't the worst one.
Wow, what an accomplishment.
They're right in the middle.
Could they be the best one?
No.
As you see the Eagles flag right behind Dylan.
I'll tell you what, though, with the Colts, they would absolutely, we have Cincinnati coming up on the schedule in a couple weeks. They're going to mess around to win that game. Then they're going to lose to the Raiders at the end. That's our brand of football. That's our brand of football. Beat Kansas City last year.
Listen, the Colts have the opportunity to send Bill Belichick to the retirement home this weekend. That'd be kind of hilarious. Then Colt Report Weekly would be definitely relevant next week. We got Bill Belichick fired.
Well, listen,
did you see that Bill Belichick interview
next week?
I didn't see the interview.
So a reporter asked him if he's had any word about his job security, and Bill being Bill turned around and said, "I'm just focused on the Colts right now." That same reporter followed up and said, well, what do you think about your job security and what your job status will be next year? First off, hats off to that reporter for having the balls to ask him that again.
Yeah, well, he's definitely not worried about severing the relationship. You don't think he's going to be there?
Bill definitely, he said, he's like, I'm just controlling what I can control.
Same old Bill. Let's talk about those Giants now, though. Daniel Jones
Let's
just coming
not.
back from the neck injury. I'm sorry, Corey. It's a relevant topic here. Daniel Jones now an ACL injury, done for the year. And I mean, I thought better of the Giants coming into this season, and it's been derailed. So the question is, obviously, you've mentioned before, Corey, on this show about Daniel Jones's contract. There's an out in what was it, 2 years?
No, after next season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
after,
2
so
years,
like this year, and then
So this year, next year, yeah. So the
2
second year of the
seasons.
contract.
yeah. So
I thought you meant 2 seasons from now,
you're
which would be
confusing
3
with the
years.
math here.
Just
Anyway,
it's after next season.
regardless. All right, what are the chances the Giants likely going to end up with a top tier draft pick? Do they go quarterback here? Do they take the successor now?
It's an interesting question because you have Caleb Williams and Drake May, who are I think the only 2 surefire quarterback prospects in the draft. There's a couple others I really like, but I think those are the only 2 that are going to be top 5 picks. One, a guy like Shadur Sanders, you don't even know if he's going to come out this year.
Well, Dion said they're not. They aren't coming out. They're coming out together next year.
Okay, then I'll believe it if I see it.
He said he came out and said it today.
Dion's not Shadur at the end of the day. I mean, I believe it, but you can't discount it until it's official. So you have that. You have Michael Penix Jr., who I don't think is a first round caliber player. He's a player I like, and I think he can go in the second round like Jalen Hurts did. Somebody with a lot of talent, but does have some question marks. If the Giants don't get Williams or May, and they're sitting there and Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, it's really hard to pass him up because then you can go and get a second or third round quarterback. But that also begs the question, does Joe Schoen have the balls to pass up on a quarterback to take a playmaker? No matter who you have under center, the Giants don't have an alpha receiver. On most other teams, the Giants don't have a receiver that'll be out there as a top 3 receiver for the most part. So they need a playmaker other than Barkley, and Barkley might not even be on the team next year. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is that, A.J. Brown, that Justin Jefferson, that Jamar Chase alpha. Get him the ball. It doesn't matter who's throwing it to him. So they could go that route, but do they have the cojones to really pass up on a quarterback? They could end up reaching for a guy in the first round just to say they got a quarterback. And it just depends on what type of GM Joe Schoen wants to be. Or they could trade up to the Cardinals or Bears for a quarterback that they like.
Look, you look at the Zach Wilson quarterback class, there's not a single one that popped. Sometimes you just don't have a class that pops.
One.
Just one.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, behind him though, because they were giving the Jet, thinking about it, giving the Jets all this crap for taking Zach Wilson, and really, I think the more crap you need to give them isn't necessarily that they took Zach Wilson, but that they're just refusing to move off of him at this point. Although I'm one of the people who has said signing a veteran quarterback isn't really going to help the Jets. Although I think trading for someone would have been helpful, especially, Josh Dobbs was available. I'm sure you could have pried Jameis Winston from someone. But when you look at, the Giants standpoint, yeah, I think the most important factor to go into in the draft, if you have a high draft pick, is you have to let Brian Daboll pick his quarterback. Then let him get his guy, because you know what? He inherited Daniel Jones. If you're going to move off of Daniel Jones, especially after seeing what Brian Daboll did in year 1 with Daniel Jones, let him pick the quarterback he wants. And then you can move forward, and then you can truly see what Brian Daboll is as a head coach. Because right now, this is an offensive guy who has no offensive weapons or pieces to work with. And it's really handcuffing him, and it's making it to where he can't even operate properly. It's frustrating. I'm sure it's affecting the other aspects of his job that he does. It's affecting the defense because, the defense feels like they have to pitch a shutout in order to win a game, especially after the Jets debacle. But I think the most important thing is look at where you're picking in the draft. And if you have a high enough draft pick where you think you're going to be able to get a guy that Brian Daboll wants, then that's what you do. If not, I'll be honest with you. See what you can do in free agency then. You were already going to pay Daniel Jones anyway. See if there's another quarterback you can get in free agency that is going to be good. See if you can pry one of these guys away. A guy like Lamar almost hit free agency. See if something like that does happen. And then who knows? Maybe the Giants don't have to worry about drafting a guy that they can succeed with. And Brian Daboll is just able to pick his guy from there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the top quarterback in free agency, if I'm not mistaken, is Kirk Cousins. Some trade candidates are Kyler Murray and Matt Stafford. I'm not sure if any of those float the boat of Brian Daboll. Kyler would be the closest.
But Kyler maybe, but I don't see him fitting New York.
No, me neither.
Kirk Cousins is no more than a 2-3 year just patch it.
He doesn't really raise the ceiling to the level of
said they
Super
plan
Bowl.
on bringing him back.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins.
He's
is
the
only
projected number one free agent.
Well, he's only a Super Bowl caliber quarterback if he's slotting in on the Jets or the 49ers. It's not he has to go to a complete team. But I'm not even talking about this offseason. Look, you hope Daniel Jones is able to be back next year. He's going to be getting paid. He's on the payroll next year. Who knows? Maybe you run it back one more year if you do go and draft a Marvin Harrison Jr. and see if things stick then. And then if not, you move off of him. You likely have another high draft pick, and then we'll see what the free agent market bears. Or likely, if you're moving off of Daniel Jones at that point, you have another high draft pick.
Yeah. I just looked at 2 mock drafts before from USA Today. The Giants at number 4, taking Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, as we mentioned in the pre-show. I'm not sure if that's the move.
Was that from today? Was that recent?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
And then the PFF one from yesterday, their mock draft 2.0 had the Giants trading up to the number 1 pick and getting Caleb Williams. No thanks. You
don't want to see him in the division?
No, I don't want to see him in the conference. I'd like him to go somehow to an AFC team.
You're a lot higher on Caleb Williams than I am.
I think.
Don't get me wrong. I think he's good. I don't think he's going to be this superstar that everyone's talking about.
I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
You can't deny talent.
I think he's a top 10 quarterback by year 2, but we have a lot of time in the offseason to debate that. My point was just the Giants will have plenty of options. They'll be up at the top. Tyrod to the IR. Daniel Jones done for the year. Tommy DeVito's not winning a ton of games. Honestly, I think the more likely route is Marvin Harrison. And of course it is, because college skill position players that I love end up going to the Giants or the Cowboys.
Were you a CD guy?
CeeDee Lamb, Saquon Barkley, and it'll now be Marvin Harrison Jr.
Don't worry, the Eagles still get every good Georgia player there
I
is.
was going to say.
Yeah, I know your pain.
I don't want to hear it.
And Kayvon Thibodeau out of my school, Oregon.
Okay, but you know damn well if the Giants take Marvin Harrison Jr. somehow, some way, Brock Bowers finds his way to Philadelphia, because that's the one piece that they need.
I'm saying you, Dallas Goedert doesn't really got it going on, right? IR now, or he's hurt.
Brock Bowers is better than Dallas Goedert.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. It's an upgrade. Yeah, Giants, whether it's in the draft or not, they're going to have to make a move, I think, for a quarterback this offseason, because you see Kyler Murray just coming back from his ACL injury last year. This upcoming weekend,
though, and the Cardinals don't want to win. I don't think it's a.
They took their time, and the way Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones have 2 completely different work ethics.
I think Kyler also got hurt.
An
like
ACL can be 9 months.
Kyler got hurt the first week of December, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit later.
Yeah, so that's a month.
Yeah, I think
they were patient with him.
Yeah. They're patient. They don't, because they don't want him.
Well, they also don't want to win.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
We'll see what kind of approach the Giants take with Jones. Might not be ready for training camp in the start of the season. Maybe he comes back. We saw some player. I mean, what do we make of Aaron Rodgers now? Is he coming back sooner rather than later?
What do you say on the Pat McAfee show?
Yeah, I was going to say,
2 or 3
back and
fortnights. He said like 2 or 3 fortnights.
That's like 4 to 6 weeks. Because a fortnight is 2 weeks.
No, I know, but so playoffs.
Playoffs.
So
he walked it back. He said it's unrealistic to expect to be back in a few weeks.
He doesn't come back here.
Maybe if they're a playoff team, He'll see if he can go. But there's a big difference between throwing a ball on the field, standing there and just throwing it around, and having to run away, especially when you're
with that
likely going to be
O-line.
playing on the same field that you tore your ACL on.
Also,
Let me
Your
paint you
Achilles
guys-
line.
also with that
wouldn't
return
O-line,
with that
they just gave up
offensive
6
line,
sacks on Monday night.
Aaron
What are you
Rodgers
beat up
sacks.
against?
comes back.
8.
The Jets
didn't
are
watch the end of the
7th
game.
wild card, right? Rodgers comes back. Jets are the 7th wild card. His first game back, tears his other Achilles.
He's not coming
Don't
back.
smirk, Corey. Don't smirk.
It makes no sense to rush him back.
He's not coming back.
He's
He
not
just-
coming back this year. It makes no sense.
He went to New York to have the spotlight on him, and it got taken away in 4 plays, and now it's still got to be all about Aaron Rodgers. He's a hell of a football player with a hell of an ego, and he wants to be talked about still. He's not coming back. He's 38 years old. He's not going to be the fastest to recover from Achilles ever.
Well, it was only a
He was
partial.
rehabbing with Cam Akers though,
Well,
or no,
You know-
Dobbins. He was coming back with Dobbins.
I was gonna say,
I was gonna
don't too soon for Akers.
I was going to say, like,
Yeah.
maybe the
Akers did
rehab
come back quick
doesn't
last
work.
year, though. Toward in July and was back by December.
Did
Maybe it
Akers
wasn't
just tear
fully
the same
healed because he
Achilles
just
he
tore
tore?
it again.
Or is this the other one now?
Either
I
way,
don't
I think
know.
it stems from the injury on the first one because now the rest of your body has to make up for it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
good,
you're compensating.
All right, let's go into midseason awards here. We're gonna start with comeback player of the year and the rookies, because that's kind of where our consensus really lines up. So just to give it away, our rookies of the year all line up. Offensive rookie of the year, we all like CJ Stroud. Defensive rookie of the year, Jalen Carter of the Eagles. For comeback player of the year, I like Tua. I know there's
As do I.
another story out there that Corey can talk about, but I think Tua, we saw what he did last year when he played. It was very good. The offense was very efficient, but he suffered numerous concussions, had missed a lot of time with that. Comes back this year, no missed time yet, very explosive offense. There's the debate to be made about, well, they're not showing up in the important games against the good teams, but still, a lot of people said, oh, his brain's going to be mush. He should retire. No ill effects. I think he's gotten better. That you see that continued improvement you want from a young player, a young quarterback, a potential franchise quarterback. So to me, comeback play of the year is Tua.
Yeah, it's Damar Hamlin. I mean, the dude died last year. Now, there's an argument, right? You can't win comeback player of the year if you don't come back. And he's been like a healthy and active every week this year. Doesn't touch the field. But the fact that he's on a roster, I do think eventually he will play. And as soon as he takes a snap, that award's on lock.
Well, he played.
He's played a game.
He played a game, but like that was like what, week 4?
I mean, it's a snap.
It's a snap. But like, even though he's not playing consistently, I don't know why he's been a healthy scratch every week. They're playing it safe with him. I would have liked to have seen him play against the Bengals just as like a full circle moment. But it's just one of those things where he has to win it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's Damar Hamlin's award. They might just name it after him because of what he went through and then coming back to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason this guy's minus 145 on betting sites right now to win an award. And he hasn't played. Like, whether you agree with it or not, he did come back from death to again play football. And, you know, at the award show, there's going to be the big recognition of it, and they're going to make a spectacle of it. The social media team for the NFL is already prepping for it. I really don't think it's anybody else's award. I don't think anybody else has a shot.
I said Tua. I picked Tua at the beginning of the year. I put a futures bet on Tua to win this award, and it's
away
because well, look, I have the same line of thinking as you, Corey, and who knows? Maybe the reason why he hasn't been on the field is because he's just not the same person. How much do you think it would change you? I mean, mentally, right? Can you go and put your body in the same positions on the field when you know that you took a shot and were actually dead on the field and were resuscitated and brought back to life? Like that's the thing. When you have those things going through your head, you can't play the game the same way. You just can't.
Yeah.
And that might be why Damar Hamlin is not on the field. And I think between that and everything, there are a lot of people who said Tua should never play again because he was going to get himself killed. Tua's gone out there. Yeah, you know what? He's protected himself. Anytime a hit's coming, he goes down. But he's also put up some huge numbers. And I know Tyreek Hill's a big part of that. But look, Tua is definitely been a huge part of that Dolphins team and their turnaround, along with Mike McDaniel. And I think that, he definitely deserves this award for everything that he has had to go through.
DTEDEATH.
Yeah, the thing that I'll say with Hamlin is he wasn't really meant to be on the field last year. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde dealing with injuries. The Bills' secondary was ravaged, and that's why he was playing so much. That's why he's probably not playing right now. Like, they're just healthier than they were last year.
He still was a rotational piece. It's not like DeMar Hamlin was
Special teamer.
Yeah, he played.
Maybe I just
he was always active.
Yeah, he was like, I hate to say it, but in terms of football, he wasn't that good. Like, so it doesn't surprise me that maybe they have better options currently.
Maybe the Bills need a little of that magic though. They're kind of fallen. Are they even a top 15 team in the league now?
Yeah,
Ryan.
I'd say top 15.
Check
top
out our
10.
power rankings this week.
I would say top 15, but
no,
15. I know we have more awards.
15. Yeah, let's move on to. Well, you guys give me your P. Obviously, I said CJ Stroud and Jalen Carter. They're the unanimous picks for us. So, Dylan, why? Obviously, Jalen Carter was maybe the steal of the draft. So, why did Chicago?
There's no
why
maybe.
Did they mess up?
There's no maybe. To get Jalen Carter, who projects to be one of the two best defensive players out of the draft class at pick 9, the dude's an absolute game wrecker. The Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, let's just call it top 5 in football. This is the guy that gets double teamed. A rookie, defensive tackle. He's got 4 sacks already, and he missed a game. He's got 2 forced fumbles. When you watch the Eagles play, this guy is out there just tearing it up. He's a huge game wrecker, and if it wasn't for off-the-field incidents, he would have been a consensus top 4 pick. Fell to the Eagles, fell to a glorious situation as Corey takes a breath and realizes that Jalen Carter is on the Eagles. Yet again, him and Will Anderson were my 2 favorite players. Anderson faces the same double teams as Carter, but right now Carter's numbers have been better, and he makes more of an impact on a more winning team.
I'll say right now, just really quickly on Jalen Carter, Will Anderson. Again, Georgia football fan. So I watched a lot of Will Anderson. I saw even more of Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is the better player. Will Anderson's the pass rusher. So that's why Will Anderson is the one who got taken higher in the draft. But Jalen Carter is for sure the better player. Also, it's very easy to overlook the fact that Jalen Carter had those legal issues. He did settle. He won't face any jail time. He is currently dealing with the civil court suits in that car wreck where the one Georgia staffer and student were killed. I know he was in some way, shape, or form involved in some kind of crash.
In the drag race.
Yeah. So, that's another reason why Jalen Carter fell the way he did. Because that was going on. There was. Yeah, so it's not like Jalen Carter fell for no reason, but he is the better player. But CJ Stroud, what I'll say about him, through 8 games, he has 2,270 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The guy's been unreal. The Houston Texans, who were terrible last year, and really for the last few years since Deshaun Watson took a snap for them, they've been bad, and he has turned this team around along with D'Amico Ryans. I think the two have been a great pairing so far. D'Amico Ryans has the defense, and right now CJ Stroud is handling the offense. He's going to get better, and he's going to become dynamic like what we saw this past week, but CJ Stroud is definitely right now has to be the runaway favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Could we say that Stroud broke that Ohio State QB, curse? Between all the poor quarterbacks we've seen come out of that school?
If it continues the rest of the year, Justin Fields had kind of a hot stretch. He wasn't winning games, but quick question. Is CJ Stroud already a top 10 quarterback to you guys? To me, he is. I wrote down the list, and it gets a little dicey. You start comparing him to Tua, Kirk, and Dak.
Well, what are
Hayward falls
we?
in there.
Well,
But
what are
is he
we?
a
Are we
top
talking
10
about?
He
just
doesn't
quarterback
have a big enough
season?
body of work to go off
for
of
a
yet to say
season?
so.
If you had
Or
to
just
restart the
this
season, you
season?
drafted a quarterback. No.
Like right now, if I'm taking a quarterback right now to win games this season,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm taking CJ Stroud within the top 10 picks.
Assuming
that-
everyone's health, I don't think I would either.
I
I
think
mean-
I would.
Not
I
yet.
think I
For
would.
games this season, if I'm picking for the future, it's different. But if I'm picking strictly just to win games this season, I think
I
that
still
there
think
are
I take
definitely
him for
10
this
guys.
season.
I would
There are
probably
10
take
guys
Stroud
that-
over Kirk or Dak. Right this season.
I'd take him over Tua.
I wouldn't take him
I
over
would-
Tua.
I would take Tua probably and Dak and Matthew Stafford if I know he's healthy.
Healthy
You don't watch
Stafford,
enough Dak,
same
Ryan.
same weapons in front. No, same weapons in front. You know,
CJ
I
Stroud.
definitely
CJ
would-
Stroud beats the Eagles on Sunday.
Yes,
I'll
I
say
agree to
that.
that. I saw that.
And Dak played a great game, but
talking
CJ
about that
Stroud
No,
game, I
was
saw
Dak-
you.
He
So
can
you
play
and
as
Cowboy
great a
Legend
game as
had a
he
little
wants.
back and
Those
forth
mistakes he made make it a not great game.
Me and Des Bryant did have a little back and forth.
Saw that.
I showed that to my mom. My mom said, "Tell your friend to stop being mean to Dez."
I wasn't mean to Des.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Corey's got the split household, half Cowboys fans, half Giants fans.
All hell.
Me and Des are boys. It was just
That's like
friendly
all the
banter.
women are the Cowboys fans, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
but
that's-
it's like you said, CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryan's doing work down in Houston, and I want to transition that into Coach of the Year because D'Amico Ryan's isn't my pick, but he's my runner-up. I love what he's doing on there, but come on, Dan Campbell and the Lions, they have to be maybe the most fun team to watch this season. It feels so good to see Detroit actually relevant, actually doing well. They're on a hot streak. They're one of the better teams in the NFL. Dan Campbell has me ready to run through a wall, whether it's because he has me hyped up or because he wasn't using Jahmyr Gibbs. One way or another, I'm going through a wall. So he's got my vote. Dan Campbell of the Lions. What about you guys? I know this is one we were kind of all over the place.
Dan Campbell's just Art Smith that uses his wide receiver. The way he destroyed Jahmyr Gibbs early in the season, that should disqualify him as it is, in my opinion.
He used
No.
Ty Montgomery.
No, he used Jahmyr Gibbs fine. Just David Montgomery was on a tear.
I
You
keep
don't
saying
stop
Ty.
giving him the ball. Yeah. I mean, David Montgomery is playing great. Ryan, you mentioned D'Amico Ryans. That's both me and Corey's pick. I know that. Here's what I'll say. Dan Campbell is doing what he's supposed to do. D'Amico Ryans is exceeding expectations and taking a low-life franchise that just had the number 2 overall pick to a potential wild card team in the better conference. If they make the playoffs, I don't see a single reason why it should be anybody other than D'Amico Ryans.
100% agree.
Yeah, just to throw a different name out there, I'm going Pete Carroll. And it's because what Seattle has done, not just this year, but last year as well, you know, building. I know this is an award for just this year, but let's be honest, Seattle should not be as good as they've been. They have overachieved for over a year and a half now. We're starting to see the real limitations that Geno Smith has. He's regressing. He's turning the ball over again. So we'll see if he's able to keep it up, if Pete Carroll is able to right the ship. But I know, I believe it was Dylan before on the pre-show. He was off the Russell Wilson train before everybody else, and they got a haul for him. They got a bunch of picks. They were able to, you know, really set themselves up nicely. This is a great roster in Seattle. And the quarterback seems to be the last position that they need to figure out because obviously, and we said this last year, it's not, Geno
That's
is
the
not
way
the
to do
quarterback
it,
of the
though.
future. But at the same time, while Geno's not the quarterback of the future, they're also not going to be in a position to draft one because they're going to be too good to draft a quarterback in a higher pick. They're going to have to hope that they get lucky and break on a second rounder like the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. But Pete Carroll has been fantastic out there in Seattle. He continues to lead this team. And, you know, he continues to prove that he's a really, really good coach.
Look for them to get the kid from Washington, Penix. Potentially later in the draft, maybe they trade up.
That's Penix is someone who I know Corey said doesn't think he's a day one pick. He's gonna just because of the way quarterbacks fall in the draft and the way this
He'll be a
draft
day
is
one
with
pick.
quarterbacks.
Will
I think he's a
Levis.
top 4. He's a top 4
Will
quarterback.
Levis.
Yeah, but
That's
how
what
many
we're gonna
quarterbacks were taken before Will Levis?
3.
2, 3.
It's
Three.
three. There's
Yeah,
usually at least
This
three
is a
taken on day
better
one.
this is a better class too.
I just think with Penix's age, I think he is
His
somebody
age
that
hurts him.
I think he's somebody that if you pick him, you trade back into the first round and pick him late in the first.
Well, I think him being from Washington helps that.
Well, but he went to Indiana before Washington too, so he's not like a true Washington guy.
I guess.
With Penix, I think that Penix is good. I think he's going to be a top 20 pick. I think that there's going to be some QB team. There's going to be some GM that talks himself into the talent. That's what's going to happen. And
He might go win a
Corey?
Heisman.
Corey, it might be Shane.
I wouldn't be upset with that. I like Shane.
They
I like,
may
Penix.
talk themselves into the talent that Penix has because
Take Marvin
you saw it
Ferguson
in
and do
Indiana.
that game.
You saw it when he was in Indiana,
Yeah.
Corey. Penix has got talent, and this isn't anything new. It's not like he just started doing this.
Just like Will Levis, I did also broadcast Mike Penix. He's got talent. I like Penix, unlike Levis. I think Penix has the talent. Just pick Marvin, trade back up for Penix.
All right, let's go to defensive player of the year. For me, this became pretty clear after he was a one-man wrecking crew against my Colts a couple weeks ago. Myles Garrett. I mean, we talked about it on the show following that game. We saw what he just vaulted over the lineman to block a field goal. Like that's not something even a great athlete does. That's an insane athlete does. Myles Garrett has been the face of Cleveland now the last couple of years. Obviously, they've had a revolving door of other issues, but Myles Garrett has been the one. He's just awesome. I mean, I don't think anything else really needs to be said. This was, I think, for me though, the toughest decision because there's some other great players, like the ones you guys are going to talk about. But my defensive player of the year right now, Myles Garrett.
I'm with you on
Yeah.
that one.
Corey, do you have anything to add on that? Or
Oh, I mean, there's not
What
much
else
to
is
add.
it he said?
Myles
no,
Garrett,
I know he said it all. I just wanted to make sure before I cut him off. Well,
you know,
the guy I want to talk about is someone who, well, yeah, he's going to get recognition for the award. I just think that he's not getting enough. And that's Chris Jones. I think that, Chris Jones came into this season, obviously with the contract issues, sat out a little bit. Well, he stepped in. He's got 5.5 sacks from the defensive tackle position. So that alone is impressive. But when you look at this Chiefs defense, look at the difference that has been made just from Chris Jones being there. They're a legit top 3 defense in the NFL right now with Chris Jones playing the way he is. He is an absolute menace in the middle of the field. And yeah, he's not having quite an Aaron Donald type season, but he's outside of putting up the sack numbers, he's not too far off in terms of the way he's able to disrupt the game.
Yeah, I think you guys have great candidates there. I think this award and the MVP is probably the two highest up in the air for me. Right now I got TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You talk about an impact. This guy wins football games for Pittsburgh. Their record with and without him over the last 3 years is just crazy. They are an above 500 team with him, a playoff team with him, and they're a borderline top 5 pick without him with the way that they play. This season, 9.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, an interception. He literally does it all. As well, I think narrative plays into it. JJ's got 3, TJ's only got 1 now. I just think the stars could be aligning for TJ Watt, especially if the Steelers maintain this record. When you look at why the Steelers are a playoff team, you're not going to be looking at Kenny Pickett in the offense, who have been outscored and outgained. You're going to look at that defense and who makes plays, and it's TJ Watt.
when does TJ become better than JJ?
Got to win more DPOYs.
I'd say right now they're closer than people might think.
I was about to say now, and he's not, especially because my first thought was, I think I'm forgetting how good JJ actually was, but TJ he's right there.
Yeah,
I think there's just better defensive players in the league
Or
with
Derek.
TJ.
there's going to be a real conversation.
Shout
Well,
out
and
to
TJ
Derek Watt.
also,
He's my
so
favorite Watt brother.
you know how like you have
That's a
guys like
super cool
Brady who don't win MVP every year because they just don't want to give it to him. Well, I think TJ Watt is in that same boat,
He
considering
just gets
that
hurt.
he also gets grouped into the JJs. They just see Watt and think, oh well, he's probably won a bunch already. Well, no, 3 of them went to his brother. So I
Yeah.
think that bias might work its way in as well.
All right, on to this is the big one. MVP, and we're gonna do offensive player of the year as well, because this is where we have some overlap. I'm going against the grain here. I'm breaking the NFL's rules. I'm not giving the MVP award to a quarterback.
Blasphemy.
I'm giving it to Tyreek Hill, because to me, he's the most valuable player. Tua's playing awesome. I gave him his props in the comeback player of the year, but I mean, come on. Tyreek's on pace to go over 2,000 yards receiving. And I don't even know how many touchdowns, but he's on track for an insane season. And if you take Tyreek away from Miami, they're still good. I don't know if they're even this good.
My question to you is, how good are they now? They're 0-3 against teams with a winning record. That's my biggest problem. Tyreek, his numbers are really, really solid as an offensive player. But as an MVP, you got to bring value in terms of wins. And Tyreek, he's not doing that in the big games. We just watched him get shut down by Trent McDuffie, the guy he was traded for.
I'm going to say that's more Kansas City knowing him spending all those years there, and that coaching staff. They know his strengths, they know his weaknesses. But
When the other thing is though too, like this whole narrative with Miami, yeah, I understand that they have this 0-3 record against winning teams, but give them a little bit more time, right? Like
Well, it's the
they've
mid-season
only had
awards.
3 games. They've only had 3 games against winning teams, and it's not like they've looked horrible in them. Yeah,
No, but it's the mid-season
Buffalo, they did
awards.
not look good. Buffalo, they did not look good, but they still looked good against Kansas City. And that game against Philadelphia, they didn't play well, and they still had a chance to win early in the 4th quarter. So it's not that Miami's a bad team. They're still a playoff team, and they're still going to win that division.
I'm not saying he can't win it, but
Yeah.
in terms of the mid-season awards, they haven't won games against good teams at the midway point of the season. I'm very much open to Tyreek Hill if his numbers are right and that team wins more games and looks better in the second half. Sure. But, you know, inflating your stats against the Denver defense in that 70-point game, who knows what the second half of the season holds. And again, offensive player of the year, that's who the 3 of us have aside from Ryan. There is no taking
Yeah.
away from his individual success.
I just think these awards are named and talked about improperly. The MVP should be the most valuable quarterback, because the quarterback is what makes or breaks a team.
Mm-hmm.
Teams don't win without a quarterback. It should be a quarterback solely award, and it should be referred to as such. The MVP should really be the offensive and defensive player of the year's award. You should have an offensive MVP, and a defensive MVP. That's what the MVP should be. And Tyreek is an MVP, but only on the offense. And if you take all quarterbacks out of consideration, because if you take whoever we have as our MVPs and put them on the worst team in the league, that worst team will be infinitely better than if you take Tyreek and put them on that team. And I think that's what it boils down to, is why Tyreek is not the MVP, but the offensive player of the year.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Corey. And I've been saying this for a while now, especially when we had that Tua Tyreek MVP debate. Who deserves to win it? Because Tua's numbers aren't the same without Tyreek. Well, guess what? The Miami Dolphins record is nothing without Tua. Look at how competitive they were last year when Tua wasn't playing. So that's the thing. Like, your quarterback is that valuable. You have to. Your most valuable player is your quarterback. You see how quickly a team's season gets derailed when their quarterback isn't figured out. But for me, the quarterback that I am picking is the best quarterback in the league, and it's because he has the fewest weapons on offense with him. Yeah, he's got pretty much the same group, just trade Rashee Rice and Juju Smith-Schuster. It's one that's basically the only difference when it comes to the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has this year. The running backs are the same in Pacheco and McKinnon. The wide receivers still aren't great. He's got Travis Kelce, who basically works as a number 1 wide receiver, but he doesn't have that true weapon that Corey was talking about. I think, you know, if you look at the 2 worst groups of wide receivers in the NFL, the 2 teams that I can guarantee you are in the bottom 5 are the New York Giants and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs do not have great wide receiver talent. They have a great quarterback, and he is the most valuable player in the league. It's Patrick Mahomes.
So I just one question right back at you. Could you argue that the Chiefs' success this year is more on the defense? Their offense is 7th in scoring, which I know that 7th isn't bad, but in terms of MVP, you have to admit Mahomes having a down year. Or
Well,
like, because we
no,
can't
but-
just give it to him or are we just giving it to him every year? I mean, this
Well,
goes
no,
back to the
it's-
Otani debate, the LeBron debate. Yeah, he's the best player, but
Look, it's not like he's sitting there with the 20th ranked offense and, it's a Zach Wilson, New York Jets situation. He does what he needs to do to win games. I mean, they're not going to sit there and light the
But is
the
that
world
what you
on
want for your
fire.
MVP? Just doing enough to win games? He's not
I
lighting
want
up
the
like
guy
he
who's
has-
going to go out there and win the most games, 100%.
No, but like he's just doing enough. He's not doing anything that is the MVP. You know what I mean? He's not going above and beyond. He's winning you games, but like lots of quarterbacks just win games. Like,
He's
not-
going above and beyond with what he has with him, 100%. He has taken the number 7 ranked offense and turned them into the top seed in the AFC. Like, where is this offense without him? Like, come on.
I think where is this team without the quarterback will be the same for all 3 of our choices.
Yeah, but if you take the Kansas City Chiefs and you take Patrick Mahomes off of the Kansas
I
City
mean, Chad
Chiefs,
Henne
is
won them a
this-
playoff game.
Did he though?
I mean, he won it.
Chad Henne didn't lose them a playoff game. but he
Anything
didn't
is
win
possible.
them a playoff game.
He
No,
Where
did on
is
that
he-
run. He
if you
did
ta-
on
if you
that
take
run.
Dylan's MVP and if you take my MVP and you put him on the Chiefs, what are the chances the Chiefs are still the number 1 seed?
But if you took Patrick Mahomes and put him on the teams that we
Oh,
have,
of
they'd
course.
be the same too.
That's what I'm getting at is that I think all 3 that we have could be very interchangeable.
They're my top 3. The 3 that
I
we
agree.
have are my top 3.
well,
You
let's hear you guys.
You want me to go or you want to go?
I mean, I'll go. It's Jalen. It's Jalen Hurts. It should have been Jalen Hurts last year. You missed
I thought
one
you were
game
gonna say
and
Jalen
suddenly
Carter.
you're disqualified. But no, Jalen Hurts. This season, like Ben said, your quarterback's job is to win games. Jalen Hurts has won the most games at the midway point of the season, dealing with an injury and probably not playing the best football he could play, but still
They're going to
2,300.
lose 3 games this month.
Maybe. Well, it's a midseason awards. And at the midseason, he's got the best record. He's 2,347 yards, 15 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns. And listen, whether you hate it or love it, Jalen Hurts is the focal point of the most unstoppable play in the NFL in the brotherly shove.
Second most important part of that play. You do
Travis
not.
Kelsey's got to get on the ball.
Well, Jason Kelsey.
The tush push does
Wolf
not work
between
without
Montgomery and
Jason
Kelsey.
Ben's having a rough night tonight.
Listen,
The tush
you-
push does not work without Kelsey.
Okay, well, Jason Kelsey in a center isn't winning MVP. So
He should.
even
He should.
What if he does?
Yeah, the
They
argument
tush
that the
push every
quarterback-
play for 4 yards.
There's the argument that the quarterback's the most important because they touch the ball every play. Like, are we forgetting Wildcat? The center has to snap the ball every play.
A bad
What
snap.
does
to Kelsey
Wildcat have
play.
to do with that?
because
the
the
quarterback
quarterback
doesn't
doesn't touch the
touch the
ball
ball.
that play, but the
At
center
least
does.
your mistakes, they're still in the NFL. I said Montez Ford was on the Bears last week.
Yeah. Back to Jalen though.
Montez Ford.
I mean, the Eagles, and I don't want to turn this fully into an Eagles thing, but they've won games every which way. Jalen has game managed. Jalen has won in shootouts. Jalen has won despite turnovers. He is 25-2 in his last 27 starts. This guy is a winner. And when you're on the best team and you're the reason for that, and your stats can back it up, the rushing aspect that he brings, despite having an injury right now with 7 rushing touchdowns, being a part of the most unstoppable play in the NFL this season, for me, it's got to go to Jalen Hurts, especially considering Patrick Mahomes, who is the consensus best player in the NFL, is having a down year per his standard. I very much so think the game that we see in week 11 between the two teams very well could dictate the outcome of the award.
I think, well, Hurts, let me put a little fun fact on Hurts. Between college and the pros, when Hurts is a home favorite by less than a touchdown, he is undefeated. So when Vegas thinks that it's going to be a close game with the Eagles slightly favored, those are the games Hurts wins,
He's also won his last 10 games that he's trailed by double digits or more.
which is an insane stat. But on the flip side, I do think Hurts and Mahomes, who were the 1 and 2 last year, are both having down years compared to last year. Hurts now with that injury to the leg, to the knee, right? Kind of hurting his rushing ability. And I just think that they're having lesser seasons than expected, albeit really good seasons. Somebody who's taking a team that we maybe didn't even have as a top 2 team in their division, somebody who in a really tough division, right? We talked about the AFC North, how every team had a chance to do something. A lot of us had the Bengals and the Browns, and then you wrote off the Steelers, but the Ravens we weren't sure what to make of. And I think what Lamar has the Ravens doing is what makes Lamar the MVP. Now, he's not going to be unanimous like he was that incredible season he had a few years ago, but he leads all quarterbacks in rushing by over 100 yards. He's turned into a fantastic pocket passer. He doesn't have a great receiving core. I mean, he's got an older, washed OBJ. They're just kind of using Zay Flowers and still not as well as they could. You got Mark Andrews, who's a good safety blanket, but they don't have a standout core. And Lamar has improved every year he's in the league, and now he's a really good pocket passer. I think he's doing everything he can to be the MVP because he is beyond the most valuable player on his team.
So the one thing that I'll use to combat Lamar is the passing stats are not there. He has 9 passing touchdowns. That's 1 per game. Out of the MVP, that's a little wild. His passing yardage isn't there, and Jalen has more rushing touchdowns than him. I think Lamar very much should be acknowledged, and I've gone and said this. Despite the stats, I think this is the best Lamar Jackson has looked as a quarterback in the NFL.
I agree.
Yeah.
The combination of that offense, what he's done as a passer, is the best he's looked, and you know that the run ability is still there. And I think it makes Baltimore a very dangerous team. But I just don't know if the counting stats are going to be there for Lamar when you're comparing him to
Eye
Hurts and
test is there
Mahomes.
because the run game in Baltimore has exploded between Keaton Mitchell. You had J.K. Dobbins earlier in the year, Gus Edwards really running it hard. It kind of takes a lot of pressure off Lamar where he doesn't need to, do everything. He's allowed to pass off some of the work, keep his legs fresh, work on his passing. You saw like what happened against Seattle last week where the Ravens blew out Seattle. Lamar didn't have a great statistical showing, but you can't watch that game and not think that Lamar just controlled every ebb and flow of that game.
Oh yeah, I've said it every week on my TikToks when I recap the week. It just feels like Lamar's got he's got the controller in his hand and he is handling the joystick in every game the Ravens play.
Which is why I think he's the MVP.
Yeah, before we move on, I just have to double down real quick. My offensive player of the year, I didn't give the MVP award to a quarterback. I didn't give one to the quarterback here either. It's Christian McCaffrey for me. So after Mahomes and Hurts walked away with these 2 awards last year, I said, no, quarterbacks have had enough.
Listen, we all went with Tyreek, your MVP.
I do want to just throw out something here. I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast. At the beginning of every season, I do an awards bet where I do Offense Player of the Year, Defense Player of the Year, and MVP on one parlay. My parlay is $5 to pay out $7,500. My Offensive Player of the Year, Tyreek Hill. My Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt. My MVP at the beginning of the year was Joe Burrow, who is currently now risen to 5th in odds. The $5 bet, they're offering me a cash out of $45.
Take it.
No, I'd let it ride for a couple months. No, at least one more month.
Since
At
he's
least one more
turning
month.
up.
I'm definitely going to let it ride a little while longer
Because
because
Burrow might keep shooting up.
if they only have 3 losses. If Burrow over the next 2 weeks is able to beat Houston and then Baltimore, I mean, the cash out's only going to go up.
Exactly.
All right, so speaking of those Bengals, let's talk outsiders of the week. They knocked off the Buffalo Bills this last Sunday night, and my outsider came from that game. Tight end Drew Sample had an impressive catch and run touchdown on a night where Jamar Chase was a little more quiet than we're accustomed to. It's always nice. They have a great 3-headed monster at wide receiver, and this tight end room with Joe Burrow in town has sort of been a revolving door. Uzama leaving, but Drew Sample was really impressed with his performance. Kind of out blew his stats from this season so far, just in this one game. You look at the box score, not overly impressive, but a little deeper than that. Drew Sample, I want to give him some props this week.
Yeah, the guy I want to go to, rookie wide receiver for the Houston Texans. We talked about CJ Stroud earlier. I was raving about him. Well, his favorite target and slowly becoming in a force when he's healthy, it's Tank Dell. 6 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner against Tampa Bay. Outstanding job in the game this week for Tank Dell, my outsider of the week.
Now, not to one-up Ben or anything, but I'll take the wide receiver from the Texans who also had 6 catches on 6 targets, mind you, for 153 yards, which is more than what Tank Dell had, but only 1 touchdown.
Yeah, the touchdowns are a little bit more.
How many
important than the
catches
30
did he have
yards.
on the game-winning drive? Because Tank Dell had 2, one of them for the score.
I don't know how many he had on the final drive. All I
I
know
do.
is how many. He did his
Tank
work.
Dell, outsider of the week, baby.
And my guy was outside the scoring drive. You can't get much more outside than that. Had a long of 75 yards in the air.
I'm going Marcus Mariota
Jay
then.
Stroud's favorite targets coming up. It might not be Tank Dell, it might be
Outside
Noah
the winning
Brown.
drive.
Noah Brown. People could decide in the comments whose was better there. I'm going Keaton Mitchell of the Baltimore Ravens. We mentioned it. Lamar 0 touchdowns in a 37-3 victory. It's because Keaton Mitchell had a big score. He had a 60-yard rushing touchdown, but 9 carries for 138 yards in this game, averaging 15 yards per carry is just obscene. Obviously, the long touchdown skews that. Don't be shocked if this guy is no longer able to be an outsider in a couple weeks. I think he could take over the backfield. Obviously, the Gus Bus will vulture every goal line carry, but
Are you, baby? Are you?
listen, Keaton Mitchell, I think he's the truth in Baltimore.
I'm obligated to reference Rutgers on every Rutgers athlete because that's all we have.
Devin McCourty.
Isaiah
Jason.
Pacheco, go Pop, go.
Don't forget Jason.
The McCourty brothers.
All right,
They're twins.
looking
Did you know
ahead-
that?
They
Yes.
share a Twitter. Did you know that?
Did.
I don't like the logistics of that at all.
Do you know they swap out on Sunday Night Football every week?
Do they actually?
No.
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past them. All right, let's look ahead to week 10. As I mentioned earlier, we had a great slate of games this past Sunday. You look at the primetime slate this week. We were looking at the NBA schedule this Thursday night. Carolina and Chicago with that.
I don't know
kickoff.
what the NFL was thinking. That was never going to be a good game, ever.
That was never going to be. Jets and Raiders on Sunday night.
Well, no, because you had Rogers Adams. That
Yeah.
would have been cool still.
Why? I mean, why have these flex options if you're not going to use them?
That's like start flexing games after week 8. This is terrible.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I
also
think they
have
were able to be
protected
flexed. They
games by
just
the
chose not
networks,
to.
though. So like, you can't just flex any random game. Networks protect games that can't be flexed. So it might not leave them with a better option.
There's too much politics for this. Let the
That's
people
what I'm saying. Put
on,
the
like,
best
Twitter
games in
comments vote
the
on what
solo
goes in
windows.
the
NBC always wins.
Well, that's the thing. If there's only one game going on, so for Sunday night, Thursday night, and Monday Night Football, those need to
Well-
be premier. Those need to be the best games of the week
But, like,
because
you
there
can't
isn't
flex
another
Thursday
option.
and Monday.
Well, right. You can't flex those, but for Sunday you can. And I don't want to spoil our games of the week, but 2 1:00 slots on Fox are Browns, Ravens, and 49ers, Jags. Fox, you could have given up one of those.
Even if they moved one of those
Money.
to 4 o'clock.
I know, but you say money, but like I can't watch both on my local cable.
They probably could have given up Cleveland, Baltimore, because that's the game I'm picking, and I picked Baltimore's game the last 2 weeks, and they've both been blowouts over Detroit and Seattle. So I don't know, Cleveland. I don't get your hopes.
There
up
was
on
an
that
Arizona game in the middle there. You definitely didn't pick them for that.
Oh, I definitely forgot about that one then.
Yeah, but
Brian
you picked
Valiant, the most hated
Sorry,
man in Cleveland this
Arizona.
week.
Sorry, Arizona.
forgettable Cardinals. Do you have a pick for that game, or are you just excited to see it?
I at this point I just want to see if Baltimore has another blowout win.
Yeah,
I mean, hey,
I mean, Deshaun Watson looked good, but it was versus the
Yeah.
Cardinals, so
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, we'll see. I'm going a little bit of a different direction here. I'm gonna go with the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Detroit Lions. I think the Chargers they're going to be a playoff team if they find a way to win this game.
question is, who is it a home game for? It's in LA, but Has that ever been a home game for the Chargers?
It's Detroit. There's no way they're traveling out there.
MCDC will get that fan base moving.
Eminem will be there.
Well, but the problem is Los Angeles is still dominated by Raiders fans.
And dominated by Niner fans.
Well, no,
Watch one of
Raiders.
those.
The Raiders are the prominent fan base in Los Angeles.
Don't forget, most Charger fans hate the Chargers right now anyway. They're still salty
Yeah.
about leaving San Diego, as they should be.
I'm all the way on we're all on the East Coast. I'm still salty about them leaving San Diego.
I don't
Yeah.
care.
Mood.
So the Rams in there too. Screw them.
Yeah, I liked that move. St.
It was
Louis.
better for the Rams than it was for the Chargers.
Oh yeah. Moving 2 was egregious. All right, I'm gonna go Niners Jags for my game of the week. I think this is a real kind of litmus test for both of these teams. The 49ers were on a 3-game losing streak going into the bye week. Brock Purdy's miracle concussion that lasted a month, and that was the excuse from everybody that loved him, but yet he was cleared to play every game. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. So let's see what he's able to do against a defense that forces a ton of turnovers for Jacksonville. Listen, what can Trevor Lawrence and this team do against a pass rush of Nick Bosa, Chase Young now, Hargrave, Armstead? It should be interesting to see where both teams fall coming off of bye weeks for both teams.
I'm going Texans at Cincy. Think this is, just like you were saying, Dylan, a good litmus test for both teams. Cincinnati started off slow. They're kind of heating up. Texans with that big win last week. This is a really good team you're going up against. Cincinnati favored by 6.5 right now. I feel like the Texans right now have a lot of the people betting on them, a lot of the square side of it. I'd probably lean Cincinnati if I had to pick a winner in this one. Not that I don't have faith in the Texans, but I think right now that the Texans are going to need to play a competitive game. I just don't think they can win, but it should be a fun game with CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow in a shootout.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
What time is that one actually?
This
it's
one
1.
is a 1:00 game.
3 really good games at 1:00. Ben's was at 4:05. How about
West
San
Coast.
Francisco being favored by a field goal on the road at Jacksonville?
How about the Bills being favored by 7.5 at home against the Broncos? Does anybody have faith in the Bills anymore?
I mean,
I have faith.
do you have faith in the Broncos coming east?
More
Seven
than
and a
I do
half.
The Bills are playing.
7.5.
Number. It's a big number for a
It's a
team
rare
that's
time
Touchdown.
I'm-
Well, they're
Rare
expecting
time
the
I'm cheering for Buffalo. Screw Sean Payton.
Poor Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts,
Too
Kyle
bad.
Pitts.
What's the over under? How many more weeks do we think Arthur Smith is the head coach of Atlanta?
I
All
think he
of them.
finished
make
the
it to the
season.
Finishes the season,
I think he gets next season. I don't think he's fired this offseason.
especially if
I don't-
Atlanta can sneak in and win the division.
He might get saved. by
I
a
also
bad
think
division.
that he has Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke. It's not like he's got the quarterback to win games either.
That's true too.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
we
they're a
you don't
game out
use
of first
Bijan
place.
on the goal line for 4 plays in a row after.
You had a headache, Ryan.
Maybe
on.
Oh,
Everybody
Davis
is given a headache by
Listen.
Arthur Smith.
it's possible that the front office is saying, "Hey, buddy, let's go get a better quarterback. Let's lose some games here." He's like, "All right, I'll just won't
Yeah.
use Bijan the rest of the season." They're like, "Good,
Atlanta's
good."
4-5, right? They're a game out of first place. They're 2-0 in their division. They're the only one that hasn't lost a divisional game in that division.
Arthur,
could
how are you
very
gonna
well win.
how are you gonna convince the NFL that we're not trying to lose games by not using Bijan? I'll tell him I believe in Algier.
he's a former 1,000-yard rusher, right?
Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean the fact that he does use Jonnu more than Kyle Pitts
and
is a
Algier
problem.
more than Bijan. He's trying
Maybe
to
he's a
lose
genius.
games. He's trying to lose games. He's doing
Someone
his job.
investigate this man.
Is he doing his job though? If they're a game out of first place,
He was doing it badly. Now he's correcting course. That's why he's going to get to keep his job.
Oh, Arthur Smith. I have to determine who do I think is the worst head coach now that Josh McDaniels got fired,
Oof.
because he was my pick. I'm between Dennis Allen and Arthur Smith.
Whoever doesn't win the division, there's your
Yeah.
vote.
I think
Whoever
it's
does
Dennis
win.
Allen, to be honest with you.
I
The
think it's Mike
Saints, the
McCarthy.
Saints aren't that bad of a team.
Mike McCarthy.
I think it's Mike McCarthy. Truly think he's
It's
a
not a
terrible head
wrong
coach.
answer.
I think it. I
No,
think
it's a
it,
right
I think.
answer.
I think sadly the right answer might be Frank Wright. Bring him back to Philly and let him be an OC again.
I feel so bad for Frank Reich. He did not want Bryce Young. He wanted CJ Stroud.
And they told him no.
And they took
He
Bryce Young.
deserves better.
Why ownership?
Jonathan Gannon might also be terrible, but
I was gonna say Gannon, but
there's just not enough.
I don't know.
like-
Dennis Allen is so bad.
I think
Yeah.
with Arizona, we kind of expected 1-8.
I know. I know.
A lot of people
It's
expected
not-
0-9. So
All
the
right.
fact
It's not.
they
It's
still
not
won,
fair.
So
It's
now
not
we're
fair.
just giving Brandon Staley a pass now.
Yeah, he's
Robert
bad.
Saleh?
You know
Yeah.
who's bad?
No, he's
Sean
bad.
McDermott. How do you have a
Sean
top 5
McDermott is-
quarterback and a top
Sean
10 wide receiver and
Yeah.
continuously get worse
Because
every year?
The guy that made his
They have
team
a ceiling.
good left.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll made the Bills.
Look,
Now, I
and
don't know if Brian
you-
Daboll gets another season in New York. He should, but there's a very real chance he's on the outs.
Well, after McKinney's comments,
Dayball's not gone,
it's
but
tough
Sean
to keep the
McDermott
locker
better be.
room after that.
Well, no. Did you see what Andrew Thomas said though about that?
What did he say?
He basically like subtweeted McKinney, like basically said that he doesn't know what McKinney's talking about, how everybody's still like in on it, and how if you don't feel like playing, you're stupid because even when the team's bad, you should be using every.
I don't know
rep
how you could
getting
be out
to
on
get yourself
Dayball.
better.
He
Well,
took
not to
years-
mention the fact that McKinney is going to be a free agent after this year.
I
He
want
took the
McKinney
bad
gone.
news. He took the bad news Bears to the playoffs last year and won a game.
They
That's-
should fire him, but Mara's got a quick trigger, as we've seen the last few years.
I was going to say it's funny that you say that because he never used to.
You're not getting better. Who are you getting better? Unless you're like pulling Jim Harbaugh from
Bill
Michigan.
Belichick.
Bill
Well, I think
Belichick's worse.
Harbaugh's going to Vegas. Come on.
Harbaugh is going to be suspended and not be allowed to coach in the league.
They'll bring him back to the NFL in a heartbeat.
No, but
Yeah,
the
he's going
NFL
to the
said that
Raiders
any
or the
punishment
Bears.
levied by college, he's going to have to serve.
I think it's very possible he goes to the Chargers. Justin Herbert, all those weapons. LA.
Vegas.
You don't think they
Vegas,
just bumped
baby,
Kellen
Vegas.
Moore up?
I mean, if you got the shot at Harbaugh, although
Harbaugh to the Bears.
the Chargers owners are so damn cheap, they won't pay Harbaugh.
He's going to the Bears. He's going
That's
to go
what
to
I think
the
too.
team he played
Corey.
for.
And only if they
We'll
get
see.
only if they get Caleb. He ain't
We'll
going there
see.
with Justin Fields.
No, he'll go there with JJ McCarthy.
Oh boy. Where do Dion and Shadur end up if they both come to
Oakland.
the NFL?
Dion's staying in Colorado.
He's a top
He's
guy.
well, he's staying in college football.
He wants to do college. He wants to succeed there. Before
I
going
think
to the NFL.
Dion should go to LSU, but this isn't a college podcast.
He's going to replace Lincoln Riley at USC.
USC is not. It's not Lincoln Riley. Their defense blows.
That's
why they fired the DC.
Well, yeah, but the way Lincoln Riley's the one who hired his DC. Come on,
No,
Lincoln Riley has never had.
I'm
a
just
good
saying
defense.
you put up 42 points on offense with your offensive minded coach, but you give up 52. It's like all right,
They've
who's
given
at
up more points at USC the last 6 weeks than Iowa's given up, like in the last 2 seasons, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but Iowa
not
also
fair.
hasn't scored more than like 10 points ever.
No, but still, come on. That's 6 games for USC against Iowa's
Did you
defense
guys
for
see
2
the
full
over-
seasons.
The
Did you guys see
Pac-12's
the
loaded.
over under for the Rutgers Iowa game?
What's it, 7?
28 and a half. The lowest over under recorded ever.
I
At the
mean,
under.
I bet the under.
That's the under is right. I think 15 might be the only number that might make me think about the over.
Jesus.
You know it's bad when we get this far off topic. I forgot we were even still recording. So some extra coverage about the head coaching carousel that's coming up this off season. That's gonna do it though for this week's episode of the Outsider Sports Football Podcast. Join us next week as we
You made it
react-
this far.
So yeah, if you stayed for all this
Appreciate
all the post credits recapping.
Appreciate it, Mom.
all
Deleted
this
scenes.
content. Yeah, the deleted scenes. The Outsider
TikTok.
Sports Football Podcast. Thanks again for listening. Join us next week when we react to week 10 and get into the back half of that NFL regular season. See you then.